Zones. Your card's home. Some belong at the front, some take a back seat, some switch it up a little, some zones are shared, and some get taken away from us forever. But does the zone you put your cards into matter? A lot of people will say, no, who cares? But you should care, because cards like Imperm interact specifically with zones and columns, and falling for lingering column effects is the worst feeling in the world. And I'll be damned if I get matched with a Mech Knight player and it's the one time I didn't stagger my entire board. Oh, you bastard! It's never a big deal until it either happens to you or some arsehole comes up with shit like this and it instills paranoia into you. So, to avoid this impending doom, what zone is the safest zone to put your strongest cards into? Let's start easy. Spell and trap zones. As of right now, there are 5 spell and trap zones, including 2 pendulum zones and excluding the field zone. Now, there aren't tons of cards that interact specifically with the spell and trap zones, but one big one comes to mind, and it's Imperm. There are others like Iron Thunder that don't really see much play as of right now, but it functions just the same. And there's also Yedra and Vader, but we won't talk about that yet. So, to play around Imperm, we just have to work out the optimal zone our opponent is going to set the Imperm in, and it's the center zone. It always is. And there's 3 reasons for it. Reason number 1. We humans are biologically conditioned to just stick shit in the middle and work around it, because it's pleasing to our brain. That's why, for years, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players just stick the most powerful card in the center zone. It's kind of like flexing, or flashing. And if you don't stick your biggest, strongest monster in the center zone, you sure as shit will place your main combo starter there. And if you think you don't, just watch your own replays and you will see you just subconsciously do it. Reason number 2, you made the mistake of thinking that everyone plays pendulum decks, and the best place to set your Imperm or your Iron Thunder is in the pendulum zone. And in an attempt to catch the pendulum player, they just naturally played all their cards in the center and side off zones, and in an attempt to catch them out, they caught you out without even trying. And reason number 3, you probably came across this short that is literally telling you to
It's almost always best to set it in the center column.
So you do. With all that being said, spell and trap zones have this bell curve of danger / probability that there's a set Imperm there. Let's be real, we've all seen a face down card in the center back row and we all got scared and quite literally played around it. Unless a pendulum deck is meta, there will be no Imperm in the far offside zones. Because of human condition, the center zone is the most dangerous spot. The center right and center left zones are this middle ground of danger. It's likely a player will try to outsmart your set cards and try to play into these 2 zones, but it's still a 50-50. So, the safest zones are the leftmost and rightmost spell trap zones, aka the pendulum zones. At least it would be if this card wasn't about to make its way into the game, and oh boy, this could pretty much undo everything I just said about the leftmost and rightmost zones being the safest spots. But unless this card sees tons of play, it's unlikely any of that will change and we don't have to worry about it. But it might see tons of play, and then we will have to worry about it. So, in conclusion, the safest spell and trap card zones to put your cards into is still the pendulum zones. Because of Matchless Turret's pendulum effect, however, this could change things, with the center right and the center left zone taking the safer spot. But it still has the 50-50 Imperm chance and that whole mind game shenanigans, but until the release of that card comes out, we don't actually know. We'll run on the bell curve for a little bit, and if things change, things change. Here's currently what it looks like, and this is what it could potentially be. Alright, now here comes a more annoying one. What is the safest monster zone? Well, it's harder to answer that because of the existence of these little blue bastards. Lynx monsters poses more of a problem. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use guesstimations on what zones is the most safe and unsafe based on monsters who interact with the zones and columns. Now, for brevity's sake, I'm not going to talk about archetypes like Weather, Mech Knights, or Valence because they have a game plan of their own and their own set of rules contributing to the monster zones that just throws everything I'm about to say out the window. But if you want to know these deck-specific danger zones, Weathers play around the zones their Link monster points to, so they generally populate this cluster of the board. Valence tend to play in the right-hand corner and move out. Valence players can do this in reverse, but trust me, they don't. So there's this line graph of where their cards are likely to go. And Mech Knights get their hands on whatever they can grab, so nothing is safe for them. And if I miss the deck that plays around zones that you play and want to hear about... Oops. Oh, okay, now to the more relevant stuff. Starting off, we have Iron Dragon Tiamatron, and I promise these cards are going to get more relevant as the video goes on, probably. This card can be special summoned anywhere, but the most likely result is for it to be in the right and left center zones. It needs 3 cards in the same column to special summon itself, and destroys everything that shares a column with it. Link monsters contribute to the summon of this card's summon condition, making these zones particularly unsafe because you probably want to blow up whatever's in the extra monster zone. However, this card doesn't really see play, but one day it might, with hits to Dragon Link and continuous cards in the back row being more common thanks to Snake Eyes. This card could catch on. Regardless, if this card is to see play, it makes these zones particularly unsafe. Let's circle back around to Iron Thunder. Iron Thunder is a card that can negate and destroy a card paying half your life points, and then it destroys everything in the same column as the card it negated. Now you're thinking, oh, if I negate a Link monster, then I can destroy tons of cards in the column, and it's going to be great and explosive, and da-da-da-da. But realistically, what's going to happen is you're going to see a scary effect, you're going to want to pop the Iron Thunder, and just hopefully catch an extra card as collateral damage. There's not really an optimal way to play this card, you just kind of got to negate what pops up and hope for the best. So this card doesn't really add any danger to any particular zones, it just makes them all equally dangerous. Sprind the Iron Dash Dragon is just better Tiamatron that also doesn't see play, but it might. It's also not nearly as restricted, so nowhere is safe. Magical Musketeers interact with columns, but they interact with all of them, so again, no one spot is safe. But if you play a really good psychological game, you can kind of get around it.
Stand back, mother! We're having a telekinetic battle of men!
So let's just say it adds risk to everywhere. Exploderer is the coolest removal in the game, but don't get fooled by its flashy PSCT. It just means every zone is unsafe, even if you stagger the field. However, while this technically means no zone is safe, the middle 3 monster zones is the most prone to suffer from the collateral damage, each having 3 spots to get caught in Exploderer's removal, and the end zones only having 2. Yajiro Invader is not really bound by restrictions. I mean, nothing is safe, but if you see this card turn 1, you've probably already lost. Same goes for Musical Sumo Dice Game, but if you see that card turn 1, you've probably already won. Kashtira Shangri-La just block zones indiscriminately, and Cash players seem to do it at random, so...
I don't know what I'm doing!
Alright, now for something actually kind of relevant. Probably. Maybe. Relinquish Anima. This card does not see tons of play, but with Linkuriboh banned, it might just make a cheap comeback. Relinquish Anima makes 2 zones specifically unsafe. These ones. And getting the suck from Linkwish just... well, sucks. Longirsu is also an annoying one. He can send your Link monsters to the grave, and there are 4 potential spots that he can point to. Orchestron can negate your Link monsters' effects and set their attack to 0. Again, 4 spots that it can point to. And then there's Transverse Generator. Now, being real, this card is mostly used for turn 1 degen strats, like giving your Berserls and Infinitely Burning for game, or an Acid Golem to lock you out of playing, but let's set aside that fact and just focus on the stealing monsters part. This card has 2 potential spots that it can point towards. Now, granted, you won't see most of these cards in play, but the risk is still there. Okay, so I've ran out of cards I can think about, so here's the final results. These are the most dangerous zones, this is the safest zones. Now go out there with this knowledge, place your most protection heavy monsters in the most unsafe zones, and your least protected ones in this zones. Hopefully it helps you one day. Good luck, have fun, see you next time. Okay, hi, small editor's note. So it's come to my attention that by pointing out that this is actually the safest zone, it's now unsafe, because everyone's going to target everything to here. Like, you can put your cards in, like, all the unsafe zones here. Shit. You could put all your cards in, like, the more unsafe zones here, but they're inherently unsafe. There's just cards in the game that are just going to unwillingly hit those areas. But, so, do you put it here then? Well, then, like, people are going to play around it too much. So, what do you do when the safest zone has now become unsafe if someone else has watched this video? No, there is a solution. and it's that you don't make any conscious choice to place any of your monsters in any zone, use a dice or dowsing rods to pick for you, lean into chaos, baby, rely on good old RNGesus to decide for you. Oh, you're playing Dragon Link and placement actually matters? Too bad, fuckhead! Summon your Link monster in the field spell zone, for all I care, the dice told you to do it. You know what? Let's just rely on chaos for all of our deck building as well.
So hey guys, so I'm going to be showing you my Odd Eyes deck profile, so let's just jump right ahead into it. We have one copy of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, you know, like namesake. We also have Exodia's Leg, a Pot of Greed, that gets us the DQ speedrun, a completely unplayable Jinzo, the 3 of Clubs, Soul Ring for that mana ramp, we have Zoro and Sanji, Typhlosion, Sephiroth, fucking Giorno Giovanna, Gogeta, and Toby of Battle Ball.